Hello everybody.
Next up we entertain AZ Alkmaar in the Thursday Night Conference League semi-final first leg. Kick-off on Thursday is at 8 p.m. and coverage is on the books courtesy of BT Sport. Now, there's been one question that's been bugging me for ages, but particularly since the draw potentially placed us together for this one. And it is this: whatever happened to the 67? Now, I realise that those listening to this are probably saying, what's the old so-and-so going on about? Well, it's like this. For those of us whose foundation knowledge of European geography grew from knowing which towns and cities are in which countries as a result of keeping an eye on UEFA competitions over the years, our opponents were always known as AZ67 Alkmaar, or whatever Dutch for 67 is. This resulted from the club's formation in 1967 after a merger between the clubs Alkmaar 54 and FC Zaanstreek, hence the AZ. They certainly had the 67 when I saw them play whilst on a football tour in 1981, where they laboured to a 1-1 draw with the home side MVV Maastricht. Though since it was a football tour and the late preview Alistair was present, my memories of the weekend are somewhat hazy, it has to be said. I do know that a few weeks later they played Ipswich in the UEFA Cup final, the Tractor Boys winning 5-4 on aggregate. Anyway, for those who are interested in these things, my limited research on the matter seems to suggest that the 67 seems to have been quietly dropped circa 1986 or thereabouts. If anyone finds it, I'm sure they'd be grateful if you handed it in. Their progress in this competition started back in the second qualifying round back in July, where they encountered Tuzla City of, it says here, Bosnia and Herzegovina. The dissolution of the former Yugoslavia and USSR has played havoc with my geographical knowledge, as learnt in the 1960s, I can tell you. A 5-0 aggregate win saw them qualify for the third qualifying round. Now, a few eyebrows were raised when they lost the first leg 1-0 to Dundee United at Tannadice. However, all fears of an upset were quickly dispelled as they jogged to a 7-0 win over the Sweaties in the home leg. Next up came the playoff round, where they faced Portuguese side Gil Vicente. A 4-0 first leg home win was followed up with a 2-1 win in Barcelos to put them into a group alongside Dnipro 1, Apollon Limassol and Liechtenstein outfit Vaduz. Fairly unsurprisingly, they walked through that group, which had, shall we say, mixed quality, the one blip along the way being a 1-0 defeat out in Limassol. Next came the knockout stages, and to the surprise of some, they won 2-1 both home and away against Lazio, which set up a tie against our fellow groupmates Anderlecht. Both ties finished 2-0 to the home side, with Alkmaar's home leg staying that way throughout extra time. Kicks from the penalty mark were due, and the Dutchman prevailed 4-1 in the shootout to set them up for this tie. In the league, they're fairly comfortable in fourth place with 61 points from 31 games. They're fighting alongside Ajax, or Ajax as the late great Brian Moore always used to call them, and PSV for the so-called Champions League and Thursday night league spots, with Alkmaar currently in the Thursday night conference slot. On the playing staff, they have a former Premier League player in their midst, in the form of keeper Matt Ryan. He spent a few years with Brighton and on loan at Arsenal. His 4-season stay on these shores ended, and he had a season with Real Sociedad, without really making much of an impression. After one season, he upped sticks and signed a 2-year deal with Copenhagen. Things didn't improve much there, and he left only 6 months into his contract. He's had more joy since his move to the Netherlands, playing 19 times for AZ since signing in January. Daisy informs me that the top scorer this season is Vangelis Pavlidis. The Greek international has scored 22 in 34 matches across all competitions, which includes 9 in 11 European matches. Those goals put him level top of the Dutch goal-scoring charts alongside Santiago Jimenez of runaway leaders Feyenoord. Danish midfielder stroke striker Jens Odegaard is a doubt for this one. He pulled up lame with a thigh strain in the weekend's 0-0 draw at Ajax. However, reports suggest that he may have improved enough to have some involvement on Thursday. One definite absentee will be promising Hungarian left-back Milos Kerkez. The 19-year-old is suspended after one yellow card too many, but he'll be about for the second leg. And now a very quick look at the wild and wacky world of association football. And firstly, Let's have a laugh at Millwall's capitulation against Blackburn, which saw them go from 3-1 up to 4-3 down, plummeting out of the playoff zone in the process. I managed to catch the second half in a pub some 8 miles from the new Den, a ground where, even for a match that important, not all stands were open. There were 4 or 5 of their number in the hostelry, none of whom could see the irony about moaning about the opposition support when they couldn't be bothered to cross the road and endure a 15-minute train ride to get to the match themselves. Their failure to get promotion will at least mean that Liverpool will be unchallenged for the title of the Premier League club with the scummiest support. Fresh from jeering a nonagenarian with years of service to a country, they elected to jeer the national anthem this weekend, whilst, no doubt, taking full advantage of the public holiday the coronation afforded. Meanwhile, the gusto with which the anthem was sung elsewhere, including at the Olympic Stadium, was, at least in part, a two-fingered salute to a bunch of fans who still have no conception of how much contempt most normal fans have for them. In the meantime, here's a thought. If you don't agree with standing for a moment's silence or singing an anthem, the class thing to do would be to simply sit down with your arms folded. That way you make your point without imposing your pretty self-pitying prejudices on others. And so to us. I admit I had a bit of a good feeling about last Sunday. As I said in these here pages, my main worry was that our good work might be undone by the decidedly iffy refereeing that we've had to face in recent weeks. I was very nearly right. The win itself was very well deserved. A 15-minute spell in the first half did see them pepper shot towards Fabianski's goal, but tellingly these rarely required a save. On the other hand, even when we were on the break, we somehow looked more threatening. The goal itself was, of course, a thing of much hilarity. The fact that Benrahma shot at all was a function of the fact that he had run out of any other options, surrounded as he was by defenders not wanting to put in a tackle. So in went the shot. The crowd reaction initially was similar to what happened in the 76 Cup Winners' Cup semi against Eintracht. There was a groan greeting the point at which Keith Robson failed to take Brooking's superb pass in his stride. Within seconds, those groans turned to unbounded deep joy as the ball curled its way into the top left-hand corner. In this case, the audible disappointment at the power, or more accurately lack of power, of the shot turned to unbounded joy as everyone realised that De Gea had made a complete mess of it. Doubly amusing, really, since in recent matches against us he's definitely been their player of the match. Then there was the penalty incident. Even Dermot Gallagher, who they keep dragging out on these occasions, was forced to break the habit of a lifetime, almost whispering his "it's a penalty" verdict under his voice, before going on to tell everyone just how hard a job it was being a referee. Well, yes, Dermot, but in this instance, not that hard at all, really, was it? There was some nonsense about the player's hand being in front of his body, as if that somehow made everything all right. Doesn't. The only statement that should be coming out of PGMOL on these occasions should be one explaining why 2 referees elected to ignore the laws of the game, potentially affecting the result in a match that mattered to both sides. To that, there's 2 possible answers. One is, and the most likely of these is, they didn't have a clue what they were doing, in which case they should be sent away until they do know. The other is that they knew exactly what they were doing, in which case they should be sent away until the fraud squad catch up with them. On the footballing front, the second half was all ours, and only some frantic defending and, ironically, goalkeeping, coupled with more iffy refereeing, really kept them in the game. Good news is now it would take an incredibly unlikely series of results to send us down. And the bad news is that with PGMOL running the show, those results are a wee bit more likely than if we were to have an honest official in the middle. On the injury front, Soufal and, of course, Scamacca are definitely ruled out, whilst there's the tiniest chance that Zuma might be about. He has been seen training on the green stuff, but it's more likely that this game is too soon for him. And so to the prediction. Well, it's true that AZ are the strongest team we've had to face in the competition. However, arguably, the same goes for them. Daisy's perusal of various Dutch footballing sites suggests that they will be coming to the Olympic with a view to still being in the tie after the first leg, the inference being that they're a different side at home. For our part, we need to be looking to impose ourselves on the tie. I reckon we'll win, and by a margin that will put us in the box seat without making us totally clear. So the £2.50 I was going to spend at the Millwall promotion party will instead be placed on us to win 3-1. Make it so, Mr. Winston.
James Corden.
Hi.
Big West Ham fan.
Yes. And big knees up Mother Brown, man.
Yeah.
Get on the forum at kumb.com. Come on, you irons.